15th, 2018 town meeting. Please silence all your telephones and your cell phones and pagers or whatever you got in your pockets. Put them on airplane mode or vibrate. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Upcoming meetings that are coming here at the town offices. Citizen Advisory Committee meeting is Tuesday, October the 16th. It's 7:30 p.m. A quarterly Planning Commission meeting will be Monday, October the 29th at 7:30 p.m. And the next Town Council meeting will be Monday, November the 5th at 7:30 p.m. Is there any other meetings or anything else anybody wants to add to it?
No, sir.
Commissioner? Okay. Moving on. Commissioner comments. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yes, sir. Hi. Thank you. I don't want to steal any thunder, but I did receive an email expressing concern about speeding on Main Street. I know Mr. Blanchard will speak to that later. In addition to that, in November, I will be attending the Moore Board of Directors meeting to discuss with them trails in Emmitsburg. At that time, they will be hosting IMBA's Board of Directors, the International Mountain Biking Association's Board of Directors, who will be visiting from Colorado. And I'm going to carry them basically my message of economic development tied into the trails. And outside of that, that's all I have for the moment.
Thank you. Commissioner Ritz.
Yeah, this past Friday, there was an incident next door to our house. This is the first incident since the June 4th meeting. Therefore, we did send an email to Mr. Wayne Green at Mount St. Mary's expressing our concerns, and we'll just keep everybody updated. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Blanchard.
Yes, Mr. President. Just referencing Commissioner O'Donnell's letter, I received a letter, I think we all received a letter actually, from a resident on the west side of town concerning speeding of trucks coming through town and the possibility of, I know we've had enforcement issues, if we could encourage our town deputies to possibly take a look at the west side of town with increasing the vigilance basically of speed. And I don't know if there's any way we can contact State Highway Administration about the possibility of outside town limits on 140 about setting up a speed camera.
Would somebody mind? I did not get the email. If somebody
Okay,
would
forward it on to you.
forward it to me,
I'll do that
way
tomorrow
I can
morning.
pass it on.
Okay.
Okay.
And I understand that town limits, there's limits with MML,
Right.
basically what we can do, but maybe outside the town limits before you actually enter jurisdiction about State Highway Administration, something like that. If anything, just one of those, clocks telling me this is your speed,
Right.
hey, slow the heck down, you never get in town.
Yeah,
So, all right, thank you. That's all I got.
Also, maybe they might be able to put a sign up that says speed enforcement. We
Right.
don't have.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
seen them in Pennsylvania all over the place.
I will certainly.
Making it. Even though you don't have the camera, they think there's one there.
I mean, I understand 140 is the only connection to 15, basically, when you're coming out of, Waynesboro, but it is, people live pretty close to the street, and the trucks are going by pretty fast, so.
Yes, they are.
so.
I will definitely take care of that.
All right, thanks.
Mr. President, you may want to acknowledge the absence of one commissioner for the record for our minutes.
Okay, Commissioner Elizabeth's not here tonight. I did not hear. Did she say anything about not being here?
No, I don't have any. No.
Okay, I guess Ms. Buckman will be in later. She might be late. My comments tonight are short. So I was able to make the McDonald's grand opening and met the owner, Tom Hoke. I think that's what his name is. He seemed like a very nice man. He owns a lot of the McDonald's in this area. It was a very nice proclamation that the mayor had presented him with. And that's all I have. Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me. Okay, I'll reserve my comments till the first meeting in November, but just the board, we're going to have picture taking on, so if you can print up for the meeting on November 5th, coats and ties, and that'd be it. Now, we did win another international award, the town, And I'll go over that in November too at that time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another one? No.
You got them all the time.
Got to roll.
Public comments? Alrighty, we have 3 people for public comment. Let me see what it's on here. Topic is running for clerk's office. Well, stewardship plan. I don't think anything's on the agenda for that. Would you guys like to speak now, or? Okay, let me, first tell you that when you come up, you give your name and your address, and you speak only to us. Do not speak to the staff or anything over here. Keep all comments to the front, please, if you can. First person to speak is Michael Kay.
He is actually agenda item number,
Oh, that's for the forestry. It says
Correct.
stewardship, I'm sorry. It didn't
Yes.
say only forestry. Sorry. Okay, it'd be Megan LaRoux. LaRue?
Hello, I'm Megan LaRue, and my address is 519 Pearl Street, and that's in Frederick, Maryland. And I just wanted to come out to Emmitsburg tonight and introduce myself to you as a candidate for the office of the Clerk of the Circuit Court. And I thought I'd just give you a really brief bio and then see if you had any questions. So I've worked at the clerk's office for almost 14 years. I did just recently leave to work in the private sector. This is my youngest son here, and when he was 3 years old, I began working in the clerk's office, and at that same time, I was getting my bachelor's degree. So, you know, while he was napping, I got up early before he got up. I stayed up late after he went to bed, and during every break at work, I studied. I studied really hard, worked full-time, had a toddler, and was able to earn my bachelor's degree in legal studies. And I graduated, and I can never say this right, cum laude, very, very well. And through the judiciary, I was able to earn a 4-year certificate in court management. And after a very rigorous application process, I was admitted into their fellows program. However, I did defer that so that I could spend more time on my campaign. And I just wanted to let you know that I really do love the job. Working there, I have a lot of support from the local bar association members. Pardon me, the bar association members, not the bar association. I don't want to misspeak. So that's it. I just wanted to come out. One last thing, I wanted to say that the north of the county has been so overwhelmingly welcoming to me that I am gracious for that. And it's thank you for the time. And I didn't know if anybody had a question.
Any questions?
I just
O'Donnell?
have a comment. Thank you for coming up. It's always pleasurable to see candidates come up to our end of town instead of. They usually
You're
stick
welcome.
around Frederick, so
Yeah.
it's always nice to see people come
Well,
up here
I've
and
lived
just say
and
hello.
worked and raised 3 sons in Frederick. They all went to Frederick High. He's a senior. And I felt like I'm very established in my community, but not so much up in out in any other part of the county. But like I said, the north part of the county has been overwhelmingly gracious and hospitable towards me.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Thank you
having me.
coming. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And now
Good
we
luck.
have a young version who, this is his first town meeting, and he would like to talk to you too.
He just give his name and his address when you come up.
My name's Jake Tucker. I'm the son of Megan LaRue. I live at 519 Pearl Street, the same. First off, I'd like to say that I like the November month for municipal government. I think that's a very good idea as an aspiring lawyer and hopefully future House of Representatives / senator. I think that's a great idea to get people involved. I'd also like to question this the Timber Act. That is, I see that there's a lot of history with that, but I do also see here that Mike will ensure contractor compliance with the contract. Is this private land that is being I wouldn't want the government to try to coerce private land to be timbered if that is not desired.
It's,
No, it's a town-owned land.
Yeah, it's on our watershed up on the mountain. We have 1,000 acres up there.
Sorry, Cliff.
All righty, is that all you had? Thank you. I think that's all the comments we had for public comment. We'll go on to administrative business. We have one appointment for administrative business for Zachary Gulden as the town zoning administrator. Presentation to be made by Mayor Briggs.
Well, it comes to be that we need a zoning administrator, and we don't have a surfeit of employees here, so we're asking Zach to double up his function as planner and also to be the zoning tech. And that's
But
about
yeah, basically your zoning administrator is someone that's appointed by the mayor who basically administers the zoning regulations and acts as the secretary for the Board of Appeals. It is a position, or not a position, it's basically a title within our code that we haven't appointed somebody as a zoning administrator. Basically, the appeals from the decision of the zoning administrator can be taken to the Board of Appeals. He is already responsible for the zoning regulations, in communication with John Clapp. Routinely, your town planner also acts as your zoning administrator. It's basically a figurehead, a figurative title. There's no job duties. There's no pay increase involved. It's just basically your title.
Do we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, need a motion to accept Zachary Gulden for the town zoning administrator.
I'll make a motion to accept the appointment of Zachary Gulden as the town zoning administrator.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Blanchard. Is there a second?
I'll second it for the sake of discussion, yes.
Motion's been seconded by Commissioner O'Donnell. Open for discussion?
Thank you, sir. What I'm curious about is Mr. Golden still a planner for a neighboring community? Do we know that?
No, he is not.
No.
Not, okay, so he's singularly employed by the town of
He
Emmitsburg?
works part-time as a town manager for a small township in Pennsylvania.
Okay,
These are things that he was already doing anyway.
Right,
As a
right.
zoning administrator. It's not additional duties. It's not, he already goes to the Board of Appeals meetings. So it's not anything additional. It's just something that's required in the code that we do appoint somebody as your zoning administrator.
okay, just making sure there's no conflict of interest?
No,
regarding
there would not be.
The neighboring community and our own?
Right, no, there wouldn't be.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty much my concern in that I worry that if, for example, a business wanted to settle in this region, that would put him in a bit of a quandary about where to locate it, if they approached both communities and said, hey, we're looking for, what might be available to us.
All right.
So that's the only thing. And I don't know if it directly affects this. It could, but that's just a concern I have at the moment.
Okay. Commissioner Rhodes?
Do you know if his intent is to, his current position, is that just until the term runs out, so to speak? In Pennsylvania position?
I do not know.
His predecessor here in town was labeled as the zoning
No,
administrator.
she was not.
She
Mr.
wasn't.
Haller was, and when Mr. Haller vacated, we did not have a zoning administrator.
That was my next question. I thought it was another employee that was terminated, but it was Mr. Haller.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Blanchard?
No, I'm good.
I don't have any questions. So I need to call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Nay.
So what we do now, we have a tie.
Mayor's the, cast the
Tiebreaker?
vote in a tie.
Don't we do that now?
You do that now.
You can do that
As
now.
well, yes.
Okay.
Vote, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, since I recommended him, I cast my vote to keep the flow of the office and keep things working here, that we go ahead and, for Mr. Zachary to be our zoning
Okay.
administrator.
The vote has been made 2-2, Commissioner Blanchard and Commissioner Sweeney for, and Commissioner Ritz and Commissioner O'Donnell against, and the mayor had, Briggs had broken the tie. Is that what you needed for the record?
Yes.
Already. Okay. Consent agenda. I think it's next.
Yes. You have three
Consent
appointments.
agenda, we have 3 consent agenda items. 2 for the Citizen Advisory Committee, 2-year terms, and 1 for Planning Commission, 5-year term. The 2 for the Citizen Advisory Committee are Wayne Slaughter and Jennifer Joy. The Planning Commission consent person is Mark Long. So, as I understand it, we do not have to vote on this, we just need to get the consent from the board.
Correct.
Okay, I'll take the consent for the board for the 2 for the Citizen Advisory Committee first. Commissioner O'Donnell, do you commit, is it okay for you to, for them to be on the Citizen Advisory Committee?
Do you want to take them one at a time or both together, or does it matter?
We can take them both together, we're not voting on them, I just need your
Okay.
consent.
Sure, yes, absolutely. I definitely support Mr. Slaughter, and I definitely support Mrs. Joy as members of, as becoming members of the Citizens Advisory Committee, sorry.
Commissioner Ritz?
I too support Mr. Wayne Slaughter and Ms. Jennifer Joy to the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Commissioner Blanchard?
Same. Both are Wayne Slaughter and Jennifer Joy approved both the appointments.
I also agree with the selection. Consent agenda is passed. The new members are Jennifer Joy, Wayne Slaughter for the Citizen Advisory. Okay, Planning Commission member, appointment Mark Long. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yes, sir. I support Mr. Long in that position.
Commissioner Ritz?
Likewise.
Mr.
Same.
Blanchard?
I've known Mark Long for quite a while, and he's a great member of the planning.
Yeah, I know Mark Long too. He's
Yeah.
a very nice man, and I think this will suit him well.
Yeah.
Motion carries for everybody consented. There will be four consents for Commissioner, for the Citizen Advisory, and 4 for Planning Commission, and 1 absent. Commissioner Buckman's absent. Okay. Let me pull this. Alrighty, agenda items. Approval of the water and sewer lead operator. Staff?
Basically, the mayor is recommending the hiring of a Jared J. Bratner for the position of lead water and sewer operator, hopefully with a starting date of October 22nd of 2018. As I brought to you at a previous meeting, our previous water and sewer lead operator resigned from his position. I believe it was in the first week of September. This job was posted, so the job was posted on the town website, the town Facebook page, Indeed, Frederick County Workforce Services, the American Public Works Association, and the American Water Works Association through our HR consultant. She handled the entire process of advertising and receiving all the the resumes. We received, based on all those postings, we received 23 candidates, only 5 of which met the basic qualifications. 4 were selected for interviews, however, 1 withdrew from the process as he was offered another position prior to the interview. So we conducted 3 interviews. Mr. Bratner received the highest scores during the interview process. He is currently employed as a water operator. He has experience as a water operator and a sewer operator since 2008. He currently holds his water license as well as his 5A wastewater license, which is necessary to run our new wastewater treatment plant. His starting salary would be, or his hourly rate would be $23.50 per hour, which is a grade 9, step 2. And like I mentioned, we're hoping for a start date of October 22nd, 2018. He must successfully complete a 90-day initial employment period, and we have checked with references, and they were all favorable.
Alrighty, we need to vote on this, correct? To approve him?
Yes, correct.
I need a motion to accept Jared J.
Ratner.
Ratner as the new lead water sewer operator. I need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to accept Jared J. Brantner as the lead water sewer operator for the town of Emmitsburg with the start date of October 22nd, 2018.
Motion has been made by Commissioner O'Donnell. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The second is made by Commissioner Ritz. Is there any discussion further on the matter?
Just curious where Mr. Bratner lives, close by?
Yes,
He's in close proximity.
yes,
So in the event that after hours,
correct.
okay.
Yes, he would be very accessible to the town, and he's aware of the requirements of overtime and nightly hours and weekends and such.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent.
Thank you.
All righty. Second agenda item is proclamation of the Municipal Government's Works Month for November 2018 for consideration. Okay, I'll try to read this all. The Mayor and Council of Town of Emmitsburg proclaimed November to be Municipal Government Works Month. Whereas the town was established in 1785, and whereas Maryland is home to 156 other municipalities, and whereas municipal government represents the most responsive level of government, allowed citizens to have direct access to elected officials, and whereas in an effort to educate citizens about the municipal government and the importance of their participation, the town of Emmitsburg is proud to promote municipal government awareness, and whereas municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents, maintaining natural and historic sites and structures, and helping them to make Maryland's a great place to live, work, play, and explore. Now, therefore, be to the proclaimed that the Mayor and the Council of Town of Emmitsburg, Maryland, do hereby join the Maryland Municipal League in declaring November 2018 to be Municipal Government Works Month in Emmitsburg. I need a motion for this, please.
I'll make a motion to accept
The proclamation.
the proclamation as read.
Yes,
Does that
that's
work?
fine.
Okay,
Motion's
thank you.
been made by Commissioner Ritz. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Commissioner O'Donnell. Is there any further discussion on the proclamation for Municipal Government Month?
No.
Commissioner Blanchard? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent. Agenda number 3. Discussion of forestry plan submitted by state regarding selective harvest and timbering. We do have a presentation on this, correct?
We have just one slide for the map. However, Mike Kay with the Forest Service will be here to talk about the forest stewardship plan. The mayor and our town planner had a meeting, I believe, about a month ago to discuss the 2013 forest plan that was brought forth to the town with recommendations on select harvest. And I'll turn it over to the mayor and then Mr. Kay.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me. In March, in 2012, I requested our staff order a forest survey, see what we've got up on the mountain, an assessment, and Mr. Kay, project manager for State Forestry Office, he is here with us. He prepared the report, and the main reason for it was we have to care for this. It's our forest, and we have to care the effects on the water supply and the canopy, everything, wildlife up there is of extreme importance. So I'd like to introduce this time Michael Kay, if we would come up. Just introduce yourself to everyone again. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Kay.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. The mayor gave a pretty good introduction to what I'm all about, but just for the record, I work for the Maryland Forest Service, and I work in the Frederick County office of the Maryland Forest Service at Gambrel State Park. When I met with the mayor and Zachary, we went over the plan that we prepared, and some questions were asked, and the mayor and Zach asked me to come back and speak to the council, so that's why I'm here. What I wanted to do tonight is explain what went into the preparation of the plan, also explain some of the recommendations that were made in the plan, and I guess thirdly, try to give you some idea how the Maryland Forest Service can help you administer the plan. So those are my three objectives. I do have kind of an abridged copy of the plan. Can I just present you?
They should all have copies.
We all,
Yep, I think we got it actually already.
They have copies.
Is this the same thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll give you what I have, just so you.
A lot later.
Okay.
Thank you.
That seems to be it. Yeah.
I have no idea how many I needed, so I hit that right on the nose. When the Maryland Forest Service, one of our basic programs is the preparation of a forest stewardship plan. And basically what that entails is we talk to the landowners to discuss their objectives, and then we would do an inventory of the forest. In a large forest such as yours, the inventory took us about 2 weeks to complete that. And given then when we do the inventory, we look at items like what kind of trees are out there. Different sections may have different types of trees. How well the trees are growing. Are the trees small? Are they big? Is there something wrong with them? Sometimes the trees may be dying for whatever reason. We also look at the understory. We're concerned about invasive plants that may disrupt forest development. We look at the other type of vegetation that's out there. We look at the hydrology of the site. Are there streams or wetlands on the site? And we, in the case of Emmitsburg, we're pretty lucky in that we have records going back to 1949 for the management of the watershed. That's when we started that. And we have a real good idea of what happened before this time. So since 1949, different treatments have been done out on the watershed. So we look at the history of the land, we look at what's currently out there, and we kind of anticipate what can develop over time. And then, given the objectives, we make recommendations on how to best manage that, or what kind of treatments should be taken out there just to meet your objectives. So that's kind of what we did in the plan. In the document that I gave you, there's the property description. That's kind of a brief history of what's happened out there over the years. At the bottom of the page, it talks a little bit about the topography and the soils that are out there. The second page, it has the format of the plan. I listed some of the issues that we're seeing on the watershed and some of the activities that we recommended out there, given what we found. When we do the, we call it the woodland exam, we look at a lot of different items with the property, and I mentioned them already, the trees and hydrology and things like that. Something else I should mention is, I think you do have a copy of the map there. That map shows the southern part of the watershed. There's also a copy of the northern section of the watershed also, and you should have that in front of you. I also want to mention that when we did this, there's other information that's available about the watershed, different layers of mapping through geographical information systems. And there's some sections on the watershed where you have rare and endangered plants and different types of sensitive habitats and things like that. So, you know, we sort through all these items. We say, you know, what can we recommend and where is the best place to do it, and then we get into the recommendations. With some of the general recommendations that we made, one of which is just to maintain a buffer area around and not disturb that area just because it's near a stream, or there could be rare and endangered species located there. And on stand 1, that's a 300-foot buffer around Turkey Run, which is the main stream that goes down through there. We pretty much recommend doing nothing there, just leaving that alone for water quality. And looking at the trees out there, they're very large. It looks like nobody's ever really done much disturbances in there. And I didn't write the previous plans, but I suspect that the foresters all said, let's just stay out of this area, just let it develop naturally. Some areas have in the past were thinned out, or there was something that disturbed the canopy so that the trees are younger, or the trees have what in forestry we call proper spacing, which means they have room to grow and develop. And in those areas, our recommendation is just to let it grow, not do anything. Everything is fine, and the best thing to do is just let it grow. So, something that I did not mention, but I should, is with these plans, we normally go for a 15-year period for the development of the plan. So the plan that was written here in 2013 probably should be revised in 2028. And actually, if you look at the last page of your handout, it says management practice schedule. That's where we scheduled all the different activities out there. And you can see that we made some recommendations from 2013 to 2018. Nothing has happened out there so far, but we kind of assumed that the plan would start in 2013. But in 2028, we're recommending that a new plan be prepared. Getting back to the recommendations, in some cases, you should leave it alone because it's sensitive. The stream buffers are a sensitive area, but you also have some really upland sites where the soils are very narrow, it's very steep, and any kind of disturbance is going to affect the surrounding area in a negative way. And those areas, we also recommended that there's little or to no disturbances. A third category, and I think this is one of the things that I discussed with the mayor, is in some cases you go out and you look at the forest and perhaps the trees are very large and they've hit their economic maturity, which is different than physical maturity sometimes, but in forestry you can put an economic maturity on a tree, and by that I mean the tree is not going to grow very fast, or it may have incipient rot when it gets to a certain size, and it's just not going to increase in value at that point in time. So sometimes you may have mature trees. Also, back in 2013, we were just getting over a big gypsy moth infestation. And I know that I remember sitting out here in 2007 over on, I forget the name of the road now, but looking up on the watershed, and you could see that the gypsy moth had defoliated a lot of trees up there. But from 2007 until 2009, there was fairly significant defoliation in the forest. That normally affects the oak trees, and when that happens, sometimes the oak trees can get what's called oak decline, and that's kind of a slow death of the oak tree. It usually starts at the top of the tree where you see the dead branches, and it just kind of works its way down to the tree, resulting in the death of the tree. So, and when we were out there and doing the woodland exam, we noticed in some areas that there was significant oak decline. Something else that we anticipated in 2013 was the arrival of emerald ash borer. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's an insect that gets into ash trees. It girdles the tree, and it causes the death of the tree. Emerald ash borer in 2013 was the southern part of Frederick County. It was pretty well established. In Emmitsburg, it's probably here now, but your trees are probably either dead or in severely declining condition. In the southern part of the county, the trees have been dead for about 4 or 5 years, and most of them have fallen down, what have you. But given the fact that we saw some oak decline and we saw a significant amount of ash trees, there's different things you can do. One of which is just let nature take its course and do nothing. But if the city is interested in obtaining income, a recommendation that we made was that you look into an intermediate harvest. And that's where we would come in, we would mark, or somebody would come in, they would mark the oaks that are dying, some of the ash trees that are still salvageable, and just generally thin out the forest, removing a lot of the trees that are in poor condition. So we made the recommendation of intermediate harvest. You can say things to the effect that you're salvaging something that's going to die, making a productive product out of it. When you cut a tree that's not quite dead, a lot of times it will resprout and a new tree will come up from the root system, and those root systems are pretty well advanced, so you'll usually get a pretty vigorous young tree coming up. And finally, in most cases, those trees are going to have some economic value. So, you could put them up for sale to loggers or timber companies. They will come in and cut the trees, remove them, and pay the Emmitsburg for the value of those trees. So those are probably three of the main benefits of doing an intermediate harvest. In some other cases, we saw sections of the forest that had the trees aren't commercial yet. They're too small to harvest, but there's practices that you can do to make the remaining trees grow better. In some cases, the cutting was pretty severe. Some of you may have remembered the Ski College Mountain area where they pretty much came in and put the clear cuts in. A lot of those forests have regenerated pretty well. That kind of cutting is seen as bad, but what it does is it allows all the trees to come in at one point in time, and there's nothing interfering with it above it. So the trees grow pretty quickly, and you usually get pretty decent regeneration in there. And in some of those areas, you may have 500 trees per acre, whereas you need about 300 trees per acre for everything to be in a free-to-grow condition. So one of the things that you could do would be to thin those out in a non-commercial nature to make them grow better. And that's something that you would have to do yourself or pay somebody to do, but that's a non-commercial thinning. Something else, there's also a thinning operation, and at one point in time you had Gladfelter Pulp and Paper Company helping you manage the watershed, and I noticed where they had marked a couple areas for to do what's called a commercial thinning, and that had never been completed. I don't know the history behind that, but in those areas, if you can get a company that is interested in the smaller trees to thin them out, the city would make a little bit of money, and you'd also have a healthier stand. You'd go from those 500 trees per acre to 300 trees per acre. So those are some of the recommendations that we made. And like I said, we use the input from some of the databases that we have. I also provided some references for other natural resource managers from wildlife, fisheries, heritage, if you want to get a second opinion on some of these items that we made. But I guess that's pretty much it. And just real quickly, I'll go over some of the issues on the watershed. This is, I guess, the second page here, and some of the timber sales that were proposed. One of the big issues that we found out there was that there was insufficient tree regeneration in some areas, and from what I could see, I would blame most of it on deer, although invasive species might be another culprit. A lot of times where Gladfelter did thinnings, they would come and they would leave the big trees and cut all the understory, so the big trees would put down more seed, and you could see where the small trees were trying to grow up, but the deer had nipped them off right at the ground level. And basically what they were doing was a thinning from below, where if you're trying to regenerate oak trees or tulip poplar or certain types of trees, you'd leave those as seed trees and you would clear the trees below them in an effort to try to get tulip poplar or oak coming back. And in most cases, the deer were not allowing that to happen. The one place where we saw the best regeneration was where the cutting was heaviest. And the reason that happened was when you cut everything and it comes up, it's very dense and there's a lot of logging slash and stuff out there. It doesn't look good, but what it does is it kind of shields a lot of the young trees from deer. And where they did the vertical clear cuts, or I know that Gladfelter did a clear cut of a pine stand up on top of the mountain. Where they did that, you have really good young trees coming up. But in some areas, you have insufficient tree regeneration. Another issue is you have significant number of oaks that are dead and dying. I mentioned that because of the gypsy moth, the ash trees with the emerald ash borer. And when we were out here, and here again, this was 5 years ago, there were a number of roads and trails that were blocked because trees had fallen down. And to get better access, you want for recreation or fire control or whatever, you want to try to promote the access out there. The timber sales that were proposed, stand 5 and 6, though, you can see where they are in the map, but those areas had a significant amount of ash and a significant amount of oak decline. Both of those are in combination are 105 acres. Then you had stand 7 and 8, stand 11, and stand 15. What we try to do is schedule these practices over a 15-year period. If you look at the schedule, though, a lot of those were kind of ASAP, just because with the oak decline or the ash trees, the clock is ticking. As I was telling the mayor, I haven't really been out there and looked at anything for 5 years. We may go into stand 5 and find that the trees that had oak decline are now laying on the ground and decomposing. You know, I just don't know the condition that they're in right now, in which case the option of a timber sale may not be viable at that point in time. But be that as it may, that's how those timber sales are the proposed timber sales, and the ones that we put as a higher priority were the ones that had the more deteriorating conditions. Finally, I'll just let you know how the Forest Service might be able to help you with this plan. As I just recommend or describe to the mayor, if typically when somebody wants to do a timber sale, we would refer them to a private consultant forester. And the foresters would go out, they'd mark the trees to cut, they would estimate the volume in that tree, and they would send it out to get competitive bids on the tree. The bidders would come out, they'd look at the area, they would have the prospectus package in front of them, and they would bid based on what they think it's worth. The consultant, would sit down with the landowner, and you would usually take the highest bid. That's usually how it works. Because Emmitsburg is a public entity, the Forest Service can act as your consultant if you want us to. We would do everything that the private consultant would do. We mark the trees, set them out for bidding, help the city put together a contract, select the winning bid, and come out, make sure that the bidders have all the permits that they need, and inspect while the cutting's going on. So I asked my supervisor if we could do that, and they said, yes, you can. So I have their permission to do that. Another option would be to hire a consultant forester. They would do the same thing. As I told the mayor, probably the biggest benefit with a consultant forester is that they do this all the time, and they might be a little bit more available when you need them, or they could get out and do the work fairly quickly. Whereas with us, that's not a big part of what we do, but to give you a timeline, if you wanted us to do it, we would probably wait until after deer season, get out there sometime in December, and go through the areas that we said that needed the treatments, and decide, if we could do some marking out there. We'd probably have everything done within a month, and you'd probably have it out on bid January or so. So if you wanted to do it next week, we wouldn't be able to help you, but if you're willing to work with our schedule, we would be able to do that. Another item, I guess, is even if you decide that you want a private consultant to do this work, some of the other activities are non-commercial in nature, and a consultant foresters, they work for a percentage of the proceeds on a timber sale. It's usually 10 or 15%. We would not have charge you that way, but a consultant forester doing something that's non-commercial in nature is probably going to charge you a set fee per day or something like that. If you didn't want to pay that fee, we could come in and maybe mark some of the non-commercial activities. And also, if you wanted to do some weed control or things like that, we can point you in the right direction for weed control contractors and things like that, or advise you. If you have a consultant and you want to make sure that the marking was per the plan, we could come out and look at it and say, yes, this is how we anticipated the marking. So there's a lot of different ways we can help you if you don't want us to do the timber harvesting. Having said that, I know that I hit you with a lot of terms and all that, and I guess just answer questions that you may have, or if you...
Yeah, just may I?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just real quick, are all the oak trees hit, the white, the black, and the red, are they all hit equally by this light?
Normally, the red oak family, which would be the red, the black, and the scarlet oaks, are more prone to oak decline than the white oaks, which would be white oak and chestnut oak. So, and a lot of time, with oak trees, trees are like people. They come in all shapes and sizes, and they have different characteristics. The black oaks and the scarlet oaks do not live very long. They live to be about 100 years of age, and then they start declining. So, and a lot of the trees out there are about 100 years of age. So most of the scarlet oaks and black oaks probably had the oak decline when we were out there. So those would be the type of trees that we would mark. If we're going through the forest and there's a nice white oak that looks to be in very good health and a black oak next to it that's declining, we would mark the black oak, so when they remove that white oak would have more of the sunlight and grow better.
Okay. You were looking at 5 and 6,
Yes.
and Commissioner O'Donnell, have you checked those out?
I have. My concern is we don't have a map of the trails, though. I was hoping we'd have a...
Is the orange,
Those might be roads, maybe, but that's not the like the multi-user trail. It's the areas, so I can give you an approximation, but that's not what the...
okay.
That's all right, but I mean, that's kind of, I'm hoping we're going apples to apples. So 5, 6, 7, and 8 have trails on them. So with 5, 6, 7, and 8, I'll start it this way. I'm not against the process. I mean, and I understand we want to gain some money for this for the community, and we also want to have, a better position as stewards for the trees. So I don't want to come across as a curmudgeon. My biggest concerns related to the trails are the nature of the equipment that's driving across the land, that would be driving across the trails. And also, there is a private driveway on the north side of Hampton Valley Road that there's an easement that I'm aware of for forestry purposes, but it's not allowed for recreational purposes. And I'd want to make sure that we basically close that door to recreational purposes so as not to provoke the landowner in an unhappy way. Regarding what's here, from what I know of forestry, from, completely amateurish, like, grunt labor a long time ago, the vehicles that are used to haul the logs out are pretty burly four-wheel drive, articulating vehicles, and they often drag the trees out as opposed to like heft them and carry them and portage them out. And what I would like would be assurances from the town that if a trail gets damaged, that the town would commit to repairing the trail to like, kind, and quality. So we see what's damaged replaced appropriately. Because I don't know if you guys have seen Frederick Magazine, but we got a great write-up in Frederick Magazine to attract people to town. And the trail that's got the most attention recently is our beginner trail, which sits firmly around stand 8. And, again, I'm not against this process, but I would very much like to know, that we can get that assurance in writing from the town to protect this, to protect the trails. Not necessarily from being damaged. I'm going to assume to a point that's going to happen, but to repair them, because a great deal of volunteer labor went into this. We're using Recreational Trail Program grant money, which is federal and state money, and we've had a private donor of $300,000, offer our process, offer to help us build our trails and provide that money willingly. And my worry is if we have trails damaged by this process and not repaired, I couldn't imagine someone would want to come forward at a future time and make a kind donation again. And I think people who have volunteered from in the community and beyond the community would be very concerned that, the blood, sweat, and tears, figuratively and literally, that have been put into the process, including, Commissioner Blanchard and former commissioners and, staff and so on, that we'd lose that. I really feel our trails are an economic engine for our community and a source of pride for us. And, it's another alternative for our young people to have something safe and healthy to do, beyond the field sport, which I'm all about also. But I just don't want us to lose that because we come back and do, the trail's here and that's where it got crushed and, dug up and torn up and so on. And it starts over here. We just bulldoze a simple line here and, hey, we got the trail again. It's not that. There's a great deal of skill and technical natures to the trail construction. So I'll say my first point. I'm not against the process, but I'd like some assurances, in my view, that like, kind, and quality comes back to what we have. And that's where I am. Machinery, I mean, I was out timbering a long time ago as literally like day labor for about 10 days. And everything got dragged out. And I just was profoundly impressed by the horsepower that did it, but at the same time, the damage it left behind. Like, one could see a trail, I was able to follow a machine out, so to speak, and it gave me a straight line home as opposed to, a circuitous route. Is that still the nature of harvesting, or?
Yes, it is, to be honest with you. Listening to your concerns, and the loggers could, if they damaged an area, they can put it back as a road, but as far as the nuances of the trail and things like that, I don't think that you could expect that to happen. What I would say is perhaps, if you wanted to proceed with this, we would meet you or, somebody to show us the very sensitive trails. Maybe if they're all concentrated in one area, we just stay out of that area or something like that. that, that might be, a compromise. In some cases, if we stayed out, if we deleted a significant amount from an area, that may no longer be commercially viable. So, that would be something where the town would have to make a choice or something. But we also work with the city of Frederick on their watershed.
I'm aware of that, yes.
And basically what Frederick did was they delineated their main trail system, and we said, okay, that's a recreational area. We're not going to go into those areas. So we're kind of working outside of that. But, they have 7,000 acres. You have 900 acres. So they're, if most of the trails are in the areas that we recommended for doing the harvesting, we would try to work with you to, make sure that we prevent as much damage as possible. But, there may come a point where we'd say, if you want us to do everything that you want to do, then it's not going to be feasible to do any harvesting in there. And that's a decision you have to make, I guess.
May I ask a question? When you're talking about stands, like say, just for example, stands 5 and 6, 105 acres, you're not removing every single tree within that 105 acres.
No. We basically sat down with the map and said, this area has similar characteristics than the others.
Right.
If we went in there and marked trees to cut, there may be a small ephemeral stream out there that we didn't see, you can't see on the map, but if we saw that, we'd say, okay, we're not going to mark anything on 50-foot sides of that stream. If we saw, an area where a lot of care was made to make jumps on a bike ramp or something like that, we might say, we're not going to do anything that's going to cause that damage or something like that. So we can kind of tweak it on the ground. We don't have to do everything. But there's basically what you have to do is you have to mark enough volume that somebody's going to bid on it, and you have to provide them good enough access that they can get in and out of the site.
Right.
If they can't afford to get in and out of the site without spending a lot of money, or the volume isn't there, then they're not going to bid on it.
Understandable.
Commissioner,
Mayor, go ahead.
Commissioner O'Donnell, you said stand 8 is where that's the beginner?
I believe so. I'm going to double check.
Okay,
Yes, stand 8 sits opposite of Rainbow Lake.
okay,
And if you were to bisect it, the northern half to the right, from the number 8 to the right, that's where purple is, the purple trail. Whereas from the left over, you see the red, what I believe is that a service road?
Okay.
Like a fire road or some such thing. From red over, from where it meets Hampton Valley Road over south, we'll say, there are
Okay.
no trails there.
okay.
Now, the other part is, I don't want to prevent this from happening. I really want to emphasize
Oh,
that.
I know where you are.
Okay.
But on the, it's not marked on the other, you see the other map
Sure, yes.
illustrate? Okay, 8's not marked on there, but it sits below Hampton Valley Road, say to the south, looking at the pay-per-view. Where he wants to, he's recommended, Mr. Kay has recommended is 5 and 6 or above. And they're not down in your 8 area.
Well, I'm looking at the proposed management practice schedule, and in the sequence, you're right, like immediately, no. 2013 would be stand 5, and that's the yellow and red trail area. And there's a lot of wiggle room there. I would imagine that there'd be ability to get a vehicle in and out with minimal damage, I would imagine. And then the next recommendation is 6, and I'm going straight on this schedule. And then the third year in the proposal was stands 7 and 8, and then the fourth year of the proposal would see stand 8 specifically. And, certainly it's down the road, but again, like, in my view, I'd like it in writing beforehand, because it's, These are the ones that really draw people.
Why don't you, we meet with Mr. K and we
With your blessing, I would love to.
and set out where these recreation areas are, and
Sure.
we'll work around them.
And I promise I'm user-friendly, and I even have this for you. Here, I'll put you on the team. You don't have to wear it on your shirt, but
Okay with you, Kathy?
And, one of the things we do when we prepare the plans, we try to anticipate what your objectives are and make recommendations, but you may find that, Stand 8 has too many restrictions on it, and maybe you don't do anything in Stand 8.
Right.
Just deleting that might, be the thing to do. We try to anticipate what you want to do, but if you come to us and say, we like everything about the plan, but don't do anything in Stand 8, that's fine with us. That's not a deal killer by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
Commissioner O'Donnell, are you finished?
I just want to thank you. I appreciate your bringing us very candid and straightforward information. And I would certainly enjoy the opportunity to sit with you at a reasonable time. My schedule is tricky in that I'm available in the Frederick area after 4 o'clock, so that's kind of limiting, I think, for maybe your availability. But if we could work on something maybe offline, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Commissioner Ritz?
And thank you.
Sure.
We have a potential revenue amount. Obviously, we don't know exactly what it's going to be. Do we have any idea what we're using that for? Are there any projects
I think what we
works?
what we
Sorry, I'm not
mentioned.
talking into my mic loud enough.
Okay. May I speak? Okay.
Yes.
What we mentioned last time was the infrastructure. We have a lot of
Perfect. Okay.
underground work to be done, our sewer lines. Also, we have with our MS4, we have need an engineering study that may cost $30,000 up at the Rainbow Lake, and then we have to do the work on there if they call for it. So we have a lot of precincts checking in.
Thank you.
But again, this is the income is important, but this was done really for we should be a good steward of this, and then under Commissioner O'Donnell's wonderful work, we've turned this into a recreation center. So let's try to do everything. Let's try to let's see if we can protect our recreation thing at the same time. Let's protect our forest and go from there. And also, if we can have some money for these other projects, we sure like to have it. That's
Great.
it.
All right. Thank you.
You will also recommend planting?
In some cases, we can do that. Actually, you pretty much have enough trees out there. In some cases, your tree regeneration is being inhibited by invasive species, and if you can get rid of the invasive plants, the native stuff will come back, and you'll get better tree regeneration. But I don't recall seeing any areas that needed any kind of planting. Something I should mention, in our area, you don't normally have to plant trees unless there's no trees to begin with. If you're dealing with an open field and you don't have any seed source there and you want to influence the kind of trees that are there, that's a good time to plant. But in your forest, the oak trees, the hickories, the tulip poplars, the maples, you have probably, 50, 70 different species of trees out there. This time of year, they're creating a lot of seed, and they're dropping it on the ground, and a lot of times that seed just stays there dormant in the soil until it gets enough sunlight to germinate. And that's one of the reasons why cutting of trees is good for a forest, because if you have a canopy that's undisturbed, then you have a lot of seed on the ground that will never germinate. The deer might eat it or what have you, but the trees won't develop. Once you open up that canopy and sunlight gets in there, you will have germination and the trees will grow. And that's what Gladfelter was trying to do in a lot of your areas, was to open up the understory so that the trees would grow. And I believe Gladfelter was out there for about 10 years doing a lot of thinnings from below in the forest. Something, I'm going over this pretty superficially. If you want, hopefully you have a copy of the full plan. You know, you could read more about it, okay, in that plan. But out on your property, you will get good natural regeneration as long as we manage around the deer and that you manage the invasive plants that are out there.
Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, can I ask you?
Yes.
Just to follow up, just to understand, do you find that deer exclosures are effective?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
We've been using that on our state forest for a long time. And that stand 8, it is almost kind of sad to see how much damage the deer had wrought out
Deer
there.
pressure is pretty intense. That was brought up in a NEPA review when we were setting up for the trails. The other part is the weed management process. Like, there's an invasive grass that's pervasive.
Japanese stilt grass, probably.
Yes, and it is abundant and prolific. And is the weed control that's mentioned, does that address that type of weed, or is it something separate?
The weed.
I'd love to learn about it offline, of course, but
Okay. Japanese stilt grass is going to be a very tough weed to control just because the seed stays viable in the soil for a long time. So to control it, you'd have to do probably about 4 or 5 years of control work in a row. And a lot of that seed comes in on deer. The deer will, if they run through some stilt grass on the neighbor's property and come and drop some on your property, you're going to get stilt grass coming back. What the weed control that I'm recommending are the plants that will disrupt forest development, the growth of trees, and that's mostly the trees and the bushes out there. Trees and bushes, native trees and bushes can grow in stilt grass, but if the entire understory is barberry or Japanese bush honeysuckle, things like that, you're not going to get tree regeneration.
Thank you. Mr. Blanchard, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just trying to absorb all of it. It's a lot of information.
This is all discussion for tonight.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not doing imagine we're going to bring it back to another meeting. Does anybody else got any more questions for Mr.
Okay.
Kay?
Not at this time, Mr. K, but between now and next meeting or whenever we decide to vote on this, just contact you if we think of something? Is that the...
That's fine. I can provide my email address, and you're certainly welcome to send emails as necessary.
Okay, thank you.
President.
Yes, Mr. Blanchard.
Actually, I do have a question. I don't suppose there'd be any way on a Saturday morning possibly to take a walk through the forest with you and explain this actually like on site. Is that possible at all?
I think it would be possible. The fall is not a good time for us, just because we have, well, this season it's probably not going to be real acute, but we have forest fire fighting, and we're doing tree plantings and things like that. The summer or the winter is probably the best time for us. But
I'll just be honest with you. I mean, I understand your presentation, but I'm a visual person, and it would be easier for me to understand, like, if you could go, all right, here's what we're talking about on the map right here. Here's what we're talking about on the map right here. I could kind of have a better understanding if I could actually look at it. So,
well, something I'll put out there is, I would, for my own benefit, I'd like to go out to stand 5 and 6 and walk around, because it has been 5 years since I've been out there.
okay.
But after I do that, maybe I can contact Emmitsburg and say, do you want to set up a time for a workshop or something that we can meet and just walk through where...
It would give me a better visualization of like what we're talking about and the stands, the trees, and everything else, and where the trails are, to be honest with you. So I'd have a better understanding. Like, all right, this is what's going to get affected. What can we do to try to prevent it? You know, or if it's so, what are we going to have to to repair, etc.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Thanks.
In his full plan, there are some pictures of the trees and areas that he is talking about and shows some of the trees that are damaged, which we can certainly, I'm not sure if you have the full
Yeah,
plan
I-
or not, but we can put those together. And my apologies, I thought we did have a map with the bike trails on it. We will certainly have that for the next meeting. But I would encourage a workshop. I think it would be beneficial for staff to also attend so we have a better understanding of what we're looking at as well.
And, you know, in the meantime, I can go out and kind of go around the watershed and re-look at some of these stands, and I may find an area that maybe this is where we should start, you know, and maybe that would be a good place to hold the first workshop. And I'd be happy to meet everybody on a Saturday and go up and take a look around.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Wearing bright orange.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to go after Thanksgiving for a couple weeks anyways.
Yeah. All right.
Any other further questions from Mr. K from the board?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Okay, thank you, Mr. K, for coming.
Ask
Mr.
a
Mayor, you have a question?
What is the timing, Mr. Donald, what would you? He would,
Timing for what, please?
timing, he would, Mr. K has indicated something like he'd like maybe to start going out in December.
Okay.
Is that too early, or?
No,
that
I
means
don't
it
think
has
so
to
at all.
go?
I mean, my concern related to like trail advocacy and that piece. I mean, I would be following up with you in the next 72 hours. I would discuss basically reiterating what my priorities are. I would have a link to the town website. There's a drop-down menu on Parks and Rec that shows the current trail map as it stands. That might be useful to you in that it might give you better access and connecting to where you want to go to the different stands. And it'll give you a perspective as to, you know, what I'm talking about. And in that email, I would hopefully provide a list of times that we could perhaps meet, so I could get here that would fit your schedule, but also I wouldn't be traveling at breakneck speeds to meet you. So, you know, I try to set up some choices, some options.
Okay.
I think the probably best would be right after the deer season's over, after Thanksgiving, correct? To meet out there in the.
If that's in your sure, absolutely.
Yep. What a proposition I'll make is I'm fairly certain that I can get out and look around before deer season. Perhaps after deer season is open, maybe the whole, you know, whomever is interested in doing that, we could meet on a Saturday and just go out and look at one site and, you know, discuss things on the ground out there.
I'd definitely be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
That'd be
I definitely look
appreciated.
for that too.
Okay.
So this would possibly be on the December agenda to look at, or no? Or too early?
It might be because deer season runs through.
Deer season stops for Maryland is Thanksgiving? I know
It starts.
Pennsylvania comes in after.
Yeah, I think
Thanksgiving.
deer season is the last week of November and the first week of December, so you might be looking at the second week of December.
Right, and that's our first week. First Monday is when we meet. So January 1 would be the most. I would think based on this timeline.
Hang on.
So January, you know, early January would be an agenda item. Mr. Sweeney, does that sound reasonable to you, sir?
That sounds reasonable to me. How about the staff? Is that reasonable enough for staff? January 1?
Yes.
Well, we will meet in December, but we'll put it on the January's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, does that kind of meet what you're looking for? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Oh,
you.
these guys.
talking to everybody.
Free sticker.
Thank you. Alrighty, we are through the agenda items. We are now to set the agenda for the November 5th town meeting.
Correct. At the last town meeting in October, the first one in October, the board voted to approve the agenda for November 5th, and I'll just read the agenda items that were already approved. Agenda item number 1 was an update on the MHAA wayside exhibit signs. Second would be the tree care ordinance for consideration. An MS4 update by staff. The update ordinance related to trailers 15.24 And it should read for discussion and consideration. And then we have one administrative business item, which was proposed trail volunteer days. And staff didn't have anything else to add.
Does anybody else on the board have anything they would like to add to the agenda? Commissioner O'Donnell?
No, sir, definitely not.
Commissioner Ritz?
I don't have anything to add. I do have a question regarding number 1. Are we going to have examples?
Yes, the contractor will be coming.
Okay, perfect.
Commissioner Blanchard?
Nope, I'm good.
I am also good. Okay, for the November 5th, 2018 meeting, we have the update for MHA wayside exhibit signs. Number 2, tree care ordinance. Number 3, municipal separation for stormwater systems update. And number 4, state ordinance related to trailers. Is that the trailers in town that you're talking about?
Yes.
Did everybody get a copy of the the containers?
Is that
Probably put on your desk a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago.
last meeting?
Yeah,
Yes, the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Okay.
I imagine that's gonna be part of that, correct?
Correct.
And administrative business, we have proposed trail volunteer days. Do we have anything for consent agenda?
No.
Okay, nothing for consent agenda. Anything else,
Did
Mr. Ritz?
did we ever hear anything back from Mr. Slaughter regarding the trails at the southern end of Community Park?
The last I heard from him is he was scratching the original plan that he sent in, and he would be back in touch, and I haven't gotten anything else from him.
I think
Okay.
he's working on it.
Okay.
You mean for the foliage or the stuff you wanted to be planting?
The
back there?
botanical garden.
Yeah, the botanical garden and the
I think
invasive
he's working
species.
on it, yeah.
Okay.
Him and his, Sandy are
Sandy,
working on it.
okay.
Yes. As
Mr.
far as
Sweeney?
I know, Commissioner Ritz, O'Donnell.
Thank you, sir.
I was looking at-
My youthful
I was
exuberance. Yeah.
looking right at Joe, it just came right out.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir. A couple quick things just to share before we jump, okay? There's a candidates debate at the Thurmont Library tomorrow night. Mr. Long contacted us. I believe it's the county executive, Wednesday night, sorry. Did I say Tuesday? I'm sorry. Wednesday night. Next thing, I'm going to approach the mayor to see if I could meet with town staff related to my function as the treasurer. I'd like to meet with the accountant and the town manager so I have a better understanding of the process. So I'll be approaching the mayor about that, but I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that. It's just for my edification. There's nothing I'm investigating, okay? And the library folks are interested in contacting town staff related to sharing the social media platform to get more town stuff out and to get more library stuff out to enhance participation. And again, that's something that they wanted me to share with the board and the mayor and staff. So that's sort of separate from comments, so I didn't want to go in the commissioner comments.
Right.
But there we are. So thank you, sir.
I also wanted to bring up Halloween on the 31st. Everything is the same as last year. I think the times are on the website in the town, I guess.
Yes, they've been promoted on Channel 99, Facebook, and the website.
Okay.
And we'll
I'm
continue
pretty sure
to
they're the same
refresh.
times. The parade will be at 7 again.
Yes.
And come out and have a good time. Bring your kids out trick-or-treating if you still got kids that are little. Some of us do. And there will be a block party at the fire hall following the parade at 7:15. Anything else for the good of the town for the meeting?
Just one last thing, and I'll remind you again in November. Veterans Day, of course, is coming up in November. It falls on a Sunday. They'll obviously be doing the usual at 11 o'clock on that date, starting at the American Legion, and then Francis Xavier's grave behind St. Joseph's, and then going to the different sites in town. There's going to be nothing really special. I talked to Fred Wood, yeah.
Fred.
And he said nothing really special, just a normal Veterans Day marking of the Honors Guard going to the different cemeteries. And again, since it falls on a Sunday, it might behoove, a few of us maybe to attend and, just be there to kind of support the guys. So.
Mr. Blanchard, I know Commissioner Buckman's not here, so maybe